Bună seara, bine v-am regăsit. Sunt Roxana Ioana Gaboriliescu și vă invit la o ediție specială a emisiunii Sănătate, Trup și Suflet, pentru că invitatul din această seară este special. Vine de peste ocean, să spun, din America și a venit în România pentru un eveniment internațional de training, coaching, de schimbare, practic, a modului de gândire, în principal pentru oamenii de business. S-a numit Train the Trainer. A trainuit în viața sa, așa este și numit profesorul profesorilor. A trainuit peste 200.000 de astfel de teacher, dar practic, sincer să fiu, după ce am făcut acest program de 2 ori, cred că fiecare om ar trebui să treacă printr-o astfel de experiență. Însă, de acum încolo am să vă cer permisiunea să trecem în limba engleză și va fi traducere în limba română. Hello, Blair Singer. I thank you so very much for joining us tonight. And I feel honored and privileged to
Well, it's my honor
here.
and privilege to be here. Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me.
In Romania for the first time?
I believe, yeah.
Wow. And?
It's amazing. I wish I could see more of it. I spent most of the time inside of a hotel, doing a program, but we're able to walk the streets today, and it's settling. I don't know how to explain it. It's settling because my ancestry is from Eastern Europe as well.
Really?
Yeah, from Lithuania, Austria.
Right.
And my grandfather, great-grandfather. So I rarely come back to this part of the world, and every time I do, it just feels like all the people that are walking around are friends of mine, or distant relatives of some sort. So it's really good to be here. It's good to be here.
Okay, well, it's good to have you here, and it's good to have your program and your guts, I should say. Because, yes, it is in my mission and my passion to work with people emotionally, but I never seen a man working like you do, and never seen actually a man mixing the business part with the emotional transformation and putting this in so few minutes, as you did actually. For me, what just happened yesterday, right, or 3 lifetimes ago, with one man that you took him from being totally blocked into opening, and I have seen actually what it was in my dream for so long, to see how a man can be a man and can be born to be a man. And starting from that, I'll get straight to the point.
Go for it.
What's going on with men this time?
Well, I'm going to assume by the question that what's going on for men is not what you would expect to go on for men.
No.
You would expect men to be men. We
Yes.
expect them to have a certain amount of power, a masculine power, a power that can lead, that can defend.
But not be violent and
not be
abusive.
Violent. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's the problem. So the problem is what's happened to men around, at least in my country, and it sounds like here as well, is that men have seemed to lose power. They've lost power. Now, what the practical reason probably is because a young boy goes to school for 8 years, 12 years, 16 years, whatever it is, and that school is mostly mentored by women. So he's being taught 8 hours a day by a woman. Nothing wrong with women,
Yes.
but female behavior is different, complementary, but different to male. And so what happens, at least what's happened for me, what's happened for my boys in school, is that when they were attempted to be boys, they were reprimanded for doing that because that was considered abnormal or deviant behavior, when it was actually just male behavior of young adolescents growing up. So, and what happens is, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And so the standard in school is more of a female type of a mode, where it's polite,
right.
Be.
But everything is suppressed because...
Exactly. So what happens is all that power is still shoved down inside.
Right.
And so it's kind of like this volcano sitting down here that it's waiting to erupt, but it can't erupt because it doesn't know how, or it doesn't feel it's permitted to. In the instance you're talking about, a gentleman, something happened to him, which I won't share, but at 6 years old, and a combination of two things. So that's one thing happens for men. And so let me describe what happens for, and by the way, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist.
But you're a trainer. You train trainers.
But I've been doing this for 40 years.
Yes.
You know, and I've gone through my own transition. And I've met big men, strong men that acted really quiet and really small and very meek and couldn't make decisions. It was just a mismatch. And one time I asked a gentleman, I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, did you ever hurt somebody? And it was just kind of like, I mean, it wasn't a big recoil, but I could tell something triggered. I go, what just thought you had? And he nodded his head. So what happened? I said, how old are you? He goes, 6 years old. Now we're talking about a 30-year-old man that still recalls instantly what happened when he was 6. Sometimes it's 12, okay, when you're getting going through puberty and stuff. But what happens is that rage comes up when you're young, you don't know how to deal with it, and big guys are very strong and they actually hurt somebody. Not on purpose, but it's just part of the thing, and it freaks them out. And then the parents punish them, and then they go to school, and school says, don't do that. You're not, you don't exercise your physical power, okay? And so over the course of time, it just gets stuffed. And so so what we have going on nationwide, worldwide, is this whole treatment of men, young boys particularly, that their behavior is abnormal behavior. When it's not abnormal, it's normal behavior. It's a little freaky for a mom.
But exactly, from a practical approach, I know that I coach moms, and they tell me, what do? I have to go out from my house because they are basically killing each other, the two boys, and there are fights, and I'm afraid all the time that they're going to kill each other.
Right.
What do I do?
Well, what you do is they're not going to kill each other, probably, okay? So, but I think, and again, there need to be boundaries on violence. I mean, even as a kid growing up in a very male, my father was a pretty strong dude, is that you don't hurt your brother physically. You guys want to fight, you want to run around, whatever you're going to do, you go do it. But if one of you comes back bloody, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, so it was that boundary. So it's a pretty wide boundary.
Okay, so bloody. Okay, but
you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that you've got to let the cubs fight it out a little bit. Every species operates this way.
True.
And I think we're mature enough as a human race to understand that we don't need to kill each other. I mean, there's evidence out there that some people don't understand that.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that you got to let boys be boys. You got to let them exercise their power, because male energy is very powerful. Decision making, leadership, protection, warriorship, all these things, statesmanship, business ownership, and leadership. Some of this requires some testosterone. Okay, and not that women can't do it, but their bodies and their hormones were not initially set up for that. Now, I can make exceptions like Joan of Arc and
yes.
unbelievable warrior women. But the idea is that it's got to be made acceptable for a person to grow and to exercise and find their power, whatever that takes. Now, I'm not the expert on it, but I just see, after working literally, Roxana, with hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I'm not talking about one guy. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people in over 40 countries over the last 35 years. And so you get to see certain trends.
Exactly, from this point of view.
It's right in front of you. And I think that, I don't think women are trying, there may be some women that are trying to neuter men a little bit, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just.
I don't think it was a will. But this is what happened.
Yeah, right. I don't think anybody intended that to happen. Maybe they did, but I don't think so.
Maybe some of them, but
I think that the other thing I do know about trends like this is they swing.
Okay.
They have a tendency to swing because everybody says, oh my God, we're in the worst economy we've ever been. It's never been like this. Yeah, it has. And it'll never go back. You know, yeah, it will. You know,
Yeah.
These things go back and forth over time if you can stand back and see the distance.
And how can we reach the middle, the balance, so not going from...
Now you're going to get me going here. Okay,
Yes.
Because here's the deal. There is no such thing as balance.
Okay.
Okay, from my perspective, nature swings to the boundary and back to the other boundary and back to the other boundary, and somewhere it goes through balance. And overall, it looks balanced. But if you look at nature, look what's happening. It happens in the oceans, on the seafloor, and forests. It's kill or be killed. It's all these things going on. But overall, nature operates in a balance. But if you look at any microcosm of it, that's usually not in balance. Okay, it's moving through it. That's my experience. If I look at my own life. However, what a human being can do that an animal can't do is we have a mind, and we can see the cause and effect. We can project into the future. We can take a look at the past, and we can see the relationships. A squirrel can't do that. A chimpanzee probably can't do that either, but we can. So we have the ability with our minds to understand that to have an awareness is the word, of the repercussions or the consequences of our actions. Okay? And
do we?
No, we do. We absolutely have, I said we have the ability to see it. But herein lies the next problem. Also gifted with this crazy brain that we've got is we have emotions, heightened emotions. And what we know neurologically from our neuroscience is that when your emotion goes up, your intelligence goes down. And anybody that doesn't believe that, just think about the last time you said something stupid that you wish you hadn't said 10 seconds later. And we all do that. And so what happens in the moment, ego and fear and jealousy and all these things get wound into the moment, in that heightened emotion, and we make bad decisions. We make bad decisions, and in a calm moment we wouldn't make that decision. But because our ego is involved, we made a bad decision, and then we regret it later, but we can't change it because the ego can't admit that it was wrong in front of other people. So it's all this twisted stuff going on.
Right.
So the answer to your question is, can we find a middle ground? Of course, we can. I don't know that we ever will, and I don't even know that we need to, but I think that people just need to be more conscious, more aware, more understanding of not just where they're at the moment, but how they sit in space and time with their families, with their businesses.
Exactly.
Like
I mean, looking back in history, we've done it all. Mm-hmm. Men abusing women, women abusing men, and other people abusing other people. We've done it all. Could we take the decision to work together?
Of course.
For the good of everybody? Is it possible?
Yeah, of course it's possible. And I believe that one day we will. Some people believe that it'll take some kind of catastrophic event for that to happen. I hope that's not true. Okay? But I think that certainly we can do that. And when we do, humanity will evolve to a whole new level of integration. And I think that we're destined for that. I mean, you just look at the personal development world that you and I are involved in, and where it was in the 1980s when I first got into it, and everybody thought it was fringe and it was freakish and you're a nutcase and all that stuff. Now it's almost becoming mainstream, right? It's like so as you see that evolution taking place, and business people becoming spiritual,
right?
That you find some of the most successful business people are studying Buddhism, they're studying spirituality, and they're integrating that in because they want that peace. They're looking for that peace. That's ultimately what they were looking for to begin with, right?
Actually, also at your event, I was amazed to see. So that's a business training, okay? And there were men from all over the world there. And in one corner I go, somebody was doing yoga. to calm and so on. And in another corner, somebody was reading a tarot card. And then in another corner, somebody was doing a massage to free, I don't know what kind of emotion.
Right.
And Sunday morning, there was a place where we did praise to God. And we live in a very beautiful, period.
Yes, an amazing, one of the best times in all of the human race, I believe, if you can see it as what it is. And some people just see it as impending doom and disaster. I see it as we're on the brink of something wonderful and fantastic. As more and more people get educated and learn these skills and learn these tools, we have the opportunity to live at a golden age. One of my teachers years ago, the late Dr. Buckminster Fuller, said back in the 1970s, he said, when we were only 6 billion people on the planet, he said, we all have the ability, 6 billion people, to live like 6 billion billionaires on this planet. And I'll never forget that statement because it hooked me. I go, how do we do that? And that's really been my mission ever since. How do we do that? And it was this combination of business development, personal development, and spiritual development, and trying to put it all together to see if what he was talking about really worked.
I have a moment here. So what are you saying is, in order to people have an abundant life, and I'm not talking about rich, there is no need for others to be poor.
Right.
Because one of the concepts that kept, including us, Romanians, down, is don't try to be rich, because then other one will get poor because of you, because you're greedy.
Right. Well, and that's a school religious thing, okay? That's based on a fundamental assumption that there's not enough life support on planet Earth to support an increasing population. Okay? And that was true back in the 1800s when Thomas Malthus, who was a British clergyman actually and an economist, came up with a theory that sooner or later the planet we would outstrip our ability to support ourselves on this planet. Based on what he knew in the early 1800s, that was true. That's not true anymore.
Why?
Because of technology, because of our ability to do more with less, which is what Dr. Fuller was talking about. He said, we reached a point where we can do so much more for so much less. Think about your phone. They give phones away, okay?
Yes.
When my first job at a corporation was selling the first disk-based mini computers. They were about the size of the corner of this room. They were $35,000 back in the 1980s, which would have been over $100,000 today, right?
Yes.
And the maximum storage in the core memory, 32K. I'm 32K. Okay,
which is now a joke.
It's a joke. You can't even power up your phone with 32K, right? So look where we've come. And as that technology curve increases so dramatically, and media going with it because of the increased bandwidth, so anybody in the world can be watching us right now, and as many times as they want to, okay? At the same time, the education system it's been proven that when we got locked down is no longer capable of serving our needs as human beings.
True.
Okay, mental health as a result of all of this technology is taking a dive. Okay, the great resignation around the world, people leaving their jobs. Why? Because they're not happy. It has no meaning to them. We're faced with some of the largest inflation that we've seen on the planet for a very, very long time. People still quitting their jobs anyway because they had some time to be at home and they'd rather have that quality time or go someplace or work on their own. Okay? Go someplace where they can be with their family and do their life's work. It has no meaning. So all these things confluing together at the same time, it's great because that means we're on the brink of moving beyond all that. School system doesn't work. Check it out. Huh?
And we are moving towards?
We're moving towards a new level of education and knowledge, which is the core, in my opinion. Now, other people will say it's technology and electronics and stuff like that, and that's probably true. But for me, it's all about education. Because education is where we learn about the world. This is where we learn about ourselves socially. This is where we learn all these things. And I'll do any program, any in the world, or I ask the listeners or the watchers right now to think about the 3 things right now you want to learn the most. Just think about them. Just wherever you are. Just think about 3 things you really want to learn, your family, your business, whatever. Yeah. And I guarantee you, whatever came to your mind, mathematics was not one of them.
No.
Engineering was probably not one of them either.
No.
Maybe world history, but I doubt it. Certainly English or Romanian or whatever, you were thinking about health, you're thinking about wealth, you're thinking about relationships, you're thinking about communication. Right. Where's a person going to learn that? They're not going to learn it at school, and they're probably not going to learn it from their parents either. So what happens is the default education to the things we want the most, there is none. So you're left to figure it out, how to be a man. Figure that out on your own. Okay, how to be a woman. Figure that out on your own. Okay, and so that's why I say the education system has failed. But what's happening is on the flip side, you, myself, a lot of the people we were with, people that have had experience in business and in life are taking on roles as teachers and leaders. Not school teachers, but people that are able to teach other people the skills based upon their real life experience that's really worked for them. Because if it didn't work for them, they're not going to teach it, right? So I call it, Bucky Fuller called it a golden age of education, a golden age for all of humanity. He said it was nip and tuck. We may not get there.
I have so many questions and not enough time. So, what do we do with our children? Because I don't want my child to do all the mistakes that I've done until 35 and then somehow not knowing how to swim and, oh, I'm going to die. No, I'm not dying, and so on. I don't want her. I would love her to know life.
Right.
And I'm seeing that I can do so much until the age of 6, 7, maybe 10, because I'm seeing my girls. The 19 years old, well, yes, I can tell her, but
right.
No.
But hopefully, before she gets there, there's enough of what's right, of what's wrong, of what's good, of what's bad, is instilled in her so that she will make her own decisions.
True.
Because one thing I've learned over the years with my boys, because they're now in their 20s, is they do listen. You don't think they're listening, but they do listen. But if you don't say anything, there's nothing for them to listen to. And then they'll start listening to getting wrong answers. They're going to get wrong answers, stupid answers from stupid people because of their stupid questions. Okay? So it becomes, my wife and I decided that when we saw what was going on in schools, we said, we got to send them to school. Okay? Just because it's regulated at some level, just because they'd be socially outcast if they didn't and all that other stuff, but that education was still 100% our responsibility, that we could not delegate the raising of our children to a school teacher who was not really highly trained and a government employee and all these things. Not that that's a bad thing for those people, but I want somebody with a richer experience to be helping me raise my children.
Right, and then we can go to other stuff that, yes, their parents bringing me their children, fix them, but they don't understand that they have to
So I'm going to ask you a question. When the parents come to you and say, fix my children, who really needs to be fixed?
Well, I started my own path exactly like this. I went, with my first child to a therapist, and I said kind of the same words, and she said, right, like you are looking in a mirror and you see that your dress has a stain or something and you want to wash the mirror. I still remember that phrase.
Yeah.
So yes, I know, but they don't want to listen. Second, it's overwhelming, Blair. It's really overwhelming as a parent, the amount of things that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm with them.
Yeah.
And somehow we have to manage. But going back to questions, Thanks to you, I've read some books about Fuller, and I read about the bees, actually. That
The bumblebee?
Yes. And it struck me, but I think it's even something more in there. You know, when you mentioned the fact that if a bee has a higher purpose in this life, you know, than just eating and for herself, why do still people think that their only mission is to provide food for the family?
Because nobody told them otherwise. That's all. Nobody made them aware of it. That's all. So what you're referring to is the bumblebee.
Yes.
Goes out in search of nectar to make honey.
Yes.
And it needs the honey for food and shelter. We know that. And that's what it does, mindlessly going out there. But inadvertently, Mother Nature gave the bumblebee a sticky, hairy little body. So when it goes into that flower and it's buzzing those wings, it kicks up the dust, which is known as pollen, and it sticks to their body. They fly into the next flower and they pollinate it, and then they cross-pollinate. So while the bee is going for food and honey through the honey, it's a bigger purpose in our ecosystem is to pollinate. Because if all the bees and insects disappeared, vegetation would die, oxygen go away, we die, right? So Fuller would say we're no different than the bumblebee. We go out every day they go out for honey every day, we go out to make money every day. They're honeybees and we're money bees. And what do we need the money for? Exactly the same thing. We need it for food and shelter, lifestyle.
Yes.
But there's a ripple effect, like there's the ripple effect of the bee as it cross-pollinates. There's a ripple effect to what human beings are doing by making money. And here's the key. The only way you make money is by adding value. If you don't add value, your business dies, right? So what happens is, as long as they're adding value in a good way, the business is supported. Just like if the bee finds a lot of honey, if the bee does what it's supposed to be doing, we're all good because there's lots of vegetation.
Yes.
So Fuller's challenge to you and I was, rather than being the mindless bee, take a look to your right and left and take a look at the ripple effects of what you're doing. Is that adding value? And what we know is by business people going out there and making money and adding value, the standard of living for all of us has increased dramatically. When he was around, it was 6 billion people. We're pushing 8 billion people on this planet. And most economists, not most, many economists will tell you we have plenty of life support to handle it. Now, there will come a point where you couldn't do that, but we're not there yet. Okay, we're not even there yet. But people still operating under that scarcity mentality, there's not enough around. There is enough. The problem is not the production. The problem is the distribution. Because now, if you got to distribute goods and services, you got to go across boundaries, and you've got taxes, and you got tariffs, and you got territoriality, and who owns what, and all that other garbage that goes on. So, challenge I told you I go off on some kinds of tangents here. But I think that the bottom line about the bumblebee is this, is that Fuller said, rather than focusing on making the money, why don't you focus on the ripple effect, which is adding value. If you really just focus on adding value to people's lives, what would be the ripple effect of that? And he said, if we could just make that shift, we'd go to a whole golden age for all of humanity.
I have to say, for me, which I never considered myself a businesswoman. I wasn't doing enough for myself. I never had an employee mindset. So I was doing enough for myself and was good. But then when you put this mindset and, okay, how many people did I help today? How many people can I help tomorrow? And when I increased that, yes, something happened also in my bank account. And actually with that bank account, of course, I did even more good things. And now we're building a kids center and so on. So, but what are you saying also for business people is that for their future, they have to think first of their mission, of the ripple effect, and that will bring their business to the next level?
Well, you can even we have the ability to change our goals. We're not wired into going after honey out of flowers. We're not wired into what you're doing right now. How do you take the information you have now, and how do you leverage that into the next goal? Okay, so classic. Person goes through their career, they build their business, they have failure, success, failure, and then finally they succeed in their business.
Right.
Okay, I'm done. I made it. No, you're not done. You're not done. Fuller also said that the reward for a job well done is a bigger job.
That hurt. for a bit. Otherwise, of course.
I'm talking about mostly to entrepreneurs, okay? Because entrepreneur, that resonates with most entrepreneurs because there's something in the DNA that says they want to continue to achieve and create and achieve and create. So what do you do now? Well, I have a colleague of mine, founder of a company we all know, DHL International. His name is Po Chung. He lives in Hong Kong. Started the company with 8 people and ultimately sold it to Deutsche Post with 250,000 employees, I believe, years ago. And we had the opportunity to work together on several projects. And he said to me, we talked about this same topic. Yes. And he said, Blair, he goes, I'm just going to add this. It's a societal responsibility to teach.
Wow.
He said it's a society. If you're in business and you've had any level of success at all, it's your societal responsibility to teach it to other people. Otherwise, we never move ahead. We keep making the same stupid mistakes. And look at all the things look at all the same stupid mistakes we keep making. And we make some of the biggest ones every 90 years. Why? Because that's how long a human being lives, about 90 years. And so what happens is the memory of the disaster that happened 90 years ago, all those people are dead and gone, and the new people, it's all new to them. Because why? Because we're relying on personal experience rather than on education. And a real education that doesn't teach people the truth, teaches people how to find the truth. Doesn't tell them what to think, teaches them how to think. You see what I'm saying? So, you know me, and we just did a train-the-trainer program with Succes Resources, and Richard and Veronica.
They're amazing in organizing this stuff.
I know, but they are the largest seminar production company on the planet, and we've been friends for over 25 years. And what they know is all this and spreading good education. And what I say in those programs is I say, look, all you got to do is take a look at the education system, and you just flip everything in at 180 degrees and start teaching that way. Rather than telling people what to do, ask them. Rather than telling them what to think, teach them how to think. Rather than telling people to do things on their own and to be the best, teach them how to work on teams and get everybody to win. Okay? So just about anything you can think of, if it's black and white, make it color. Okay? If you're sitting still, stand up and move around. So, because we know from the neuroscience that that's how our brains are designed to work. True. We are both physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual beings. School only focuses on the mental.
Right.
And so it negates the other 3 dimensions. We are 4-dimensional beings, not 3, not 2, not 1, 4. And so that's why it's a joy to work with those guys. But all the things that we're talking about here, and I don't know how we got from this to this to this. To
this. I have no idea. I'm trying at least, I'm watching the clock, and at least 2 things I want to touch, and I hope you will come back to Romania.
You give me permission to do this. And
of course. But by the way, I just want to say to my watchers, it's not a commercial, but if you have the chance to go to any of the Succes Resources event of Tony Robbins, of Blair Singer, of Robert Kiyosaki, and everything that's done by them, go. It's an experience, exactly, like everything. Your body, all your bodies, if you have an energetic body, an etheric, and so on, it's involved. So the transformation it's total. And I love to go. Of course, now I have my own events, but I still go to them because they do it on a big scale. And when so many people gather together for the same reason, for the same purpose, and with the same goal, it's magical. I don't have any other words. And I'm so grateful that this magic was in Romania. Going back somehow, trying to realign to the wheel of what we started with feminine and masculine. Please give me some good news here and at least some guidelines, because what I've noticed also in these events that now women for a lot of years we've done emotional therapies and we've done a lot of things, and I noticed that they have the courage to stand up. They were the ones who were on the stage to do the presentation, to win the presentation contest. How can we not how do I say it in a nice way? I love my men, and sometimes I realize my God, that's a sharing. I want him to be a man, but sometimes I feel like I'm more powerful than him, even though I know he's inside and he's more powerful than me. Yeah. How us as women can be women and not affecting our men, but doing the opposite, to encourage them to be men.
Just by doing what you just said. You got to talk it through. You got to have the conversation. You got to, when it comes up in the space, call a timeout and talk about it, okay? Because what happens is this conversation just doesn't happen between men and women very often about their power and all those things. I think that you had also asked before, you said, what can parents do?
Yes.
And so because when our boys were having some challenges and we decided that the problem was us, not the kids.
Of course.
Because you can't blame it on them. So, and I realized that the answer there is that men and women both have to continue their education. Just because you quit, you're done with school doesn't mean education's over. That's when education begins. You don't go through 8 years of school and I'm done, here's my diploma, and I'm all done. That's when it begins. And it's not just the school of hard knocks. We all have that, but there's ability, there's all types of therapies and trainings and education that can help a person work on what I call your little voice, the little voice in your brain, and can work on your heart and work on your power and work on the relationships between the two, because male and female were designed to work together. That's God's design. That's not our design. They're supposed to work together. Men, women for centuries have been suppressed, abused, okay, by men.
Yes.
Now men are being suppressed by women in some cases, not on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, just because the standards are set up. And I think that everybody just take a breath, sit back, take a look at it and say, sweetheart, we just need to sit down and talk about this a little bit. Okay, let's just start a conversation. I want you to have power. I want to have power. How do we do this? What is power? How, all these discussions we just don't have with each other, or we don't take the time for it. And then let's go take a couple classes together. Let's go check it out. Let's go to a Succes Resources program together and experience personal development together.
What do we do with, I don't know if it's only in Romania, but we have an answer. So I can't afford that class. I can't afford that therapy. Well, what do I do with this I can't afford?
Now you make me put on my sales hat.
Yes,
okay?
Please. The last 6 minutes?
Yeah, no, it's like the reason people don't have the money. I mean, legitimately, there's some people that have no money to barely eat.
Yeah.
Okay, and I got that, but I think that it's hard to spend money on something you don't have a relationship to. If I told you there's a $120,000 Ferrari is sitting in the parking lot, and I can get it to you for $5,000, would you buy it?
Maybe for my husband.
If you wanted
Yeah.
a Ferrari,
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay, would you want it? Yeah, of course you would. You move heaven and earth to do it, because even if you didn't have the money, you'd find the money because it's such a deal.
Yes.
The thing about personal development training and things like that, it's not something that's on people's number 1 or 2 or 3 on their priority list of things that they want or need. And so I think that that's why what we're doing with our websites and what you're doing, and we're doing this, is creating an introduction to this stuff. And so if any of this stuff intrigues you at all, find a place where you can, on YouTube, some place where you can start getting a little mentoring, start getting a little information, read a couple books. And if it strikes your fancy and you see a little bit of a result, then scrimp up a little bit of money and spend a couple $100 and go to a program and see if it makes a difference.
The second, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I'm just seeing the watch. Then, after I can't afford, I will do it on my own.
Do what on your own?
I'll read a book and I'll do the progressing on my own. I don't go to courses. I don't go to coaches.
Well, that's another issue. And I actually really don't have a problem with that. But a lot of times the people that say that say it, but they still don't. They're not doing anything. And that's why it's good if you're a couple to do things together, study the same book together, have discussions on the book together, and it makes a difference. We're communicating animals. That's what we're designed to do.
So what you're saying, doing things together more than paying the bills together and bringing kids to school. And okay, and the last issue, there are a lot of people going to classes and just copying what they receive and throwing it to the world, and this affects also the credibility of teachers, because now the clients say, oh, yeah, I've heard it from this one, and this one is free. Is it, I don't know, is it okay to be...
To copy?
To have not to copy, but to have so many people now in the teaching industry and coaching industry?
Okay, given the alternative, I'd say yes, it's okay. Given the alternative, because up prior to that, there's a void, a gigantic void. The only education was available through the church. And then the education became public education, publicly funded education. So publicly funded education is going to move in the direction of who's funding it. Okay? So I think that it's all good. And I think that it will, as every market does, it will balance itself out. The people that are good will stay good, okay? The people that are bad will go away, okay? You got to allow the market time to make its decisions, and I trust the market. I'm just happy that all these people want to become trainers or want to teach. And I used to think, well, you'd only teach this, this, and this. You know, if there's something in your heart that you love, if there's something that is meaningful to you, and there's something that you know that you got some really personal gain from, why not share it with somebody? If it worked for you, it's going to work for somebody else. And so I think at the end of the day, it's all good. My whole thing is I just want to teach people how to do it in a way that it sticks the first time, so that you feel good about teaching it, people feel good about you learning it, and that's why our mission is to create the best teachers, leaders, and facilitators in the world, whatever you want to teach.
My last question is, what was the greatest reward that you received for all the good that you've done in this world?
The greatest reward is just to be happy, to feel like you're in the right place at the right time, with the right people, asking the right questions, getting the right answers, and where time just disappears, just like it is right now. That's the best reward.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. And thank you for watching. And by the way, I didn't mention, he is the guy who brought me to Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro. But you have a show on that, because I recorded when I came back. And thank you. I couldn't thank you enough for what you did, convincing me that I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I did it. That's the magic of teacher. And again, if allow me to switch into Romanian and to end it in my mother tongue. Mi-aș dori atât de mult să dați feedback, să scrieți exact ceea ce simțiți acum, după această emisiune. Ce s-a trezit în voi? Ce întrebări aveți? Ce lucru mai mare decât ați crezut că puteți vreodată v-a venit în minte că ați putea să faceți? dați-ne un semn. Sănătate, trup și suflet, Canal 33, ne găsiți. Îl găsiți pe Blair Singer, găsiți pe cei care organizează. Găsiți acum, nu mai pierdeți o secundă. Și vedeți cum puteți să treceți la următorul nivel. Vă mulțumesc pentru atenție, le mulțumesc colegilor mei pentru tot sprijinul. Mulțumesc lui Dumnezeu. O seară binecuvântată. Rămâneți pe Canal 33. La revedere!